Crime Chronicles Confidential brings you the most mysterious and chilling true crime stories. From serial killers who were never caught to unsolved mysteries that continue to haunt investigators, this channel uncovers the darkest secrets of the criminal world. Each case is explored in detail, revealing shocking evidence, cryptic messages, and unanswered questions. If you are fascinated by true crime, cold cases, and the psychology of criminals, this is a place for you. Now, we turn to today's story and begin one of the most baffling and terrifying cases in history, a case that remains a haunting mystery even after decades. The story of a killer who taunted the police, sent cryptic messages, and left behind a puzzle that is yet to be fully solved. The Zodiac Killer was no ordinary murderer. He was a ghost in the shadows, a predator who played a game with law enforcement, and a criminal mastermind whose identity remains unknown. His crimes were brutal, his letters were chilling, and his ciphers challenged even the best codebreakers. The fear he instilled in the people of California was unlike anything before. His case remains one of the most infamous and disturbing mysteries in American history. Who was the Zodiac Killer? What drove him to kill? And why was he never caught? Today, we unravel the terrifying and unsolved mystery of the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer is one of the most infamous and mysterious serial killers in American history. Active during the late 1960s and early 1970s in Northern California, he terrorized the public with a series of brutal murders and cryptic messages sent to newspapers. Unlike most serial killers, he did not just kill and disappear. He played a terrifying game with law enforcement, taunting them through letters, ciphers, and phone calls, challenging them to uncover his identity. The Zodiac Killer is confirmed to have committed at least 5 murders, but he claimed to have killed more than 30 people. His attacks were seemingly random, targeting young couples and lone individuals, often in secluded areas. His letters were filled with chilling threats, bizarre symbols, and coded messages that experts and investigators struggled to decipher. Some of these ciphers remain unsolved to this day, fueling endless theories about his identity and motives. What made the Zodiac Killer even more terrifying was his ability to evade capture. Despite multiple eyewitness accounts, detailed police investigations, and numerous suspects, he was never identified or arrested. His case became one of the greatest mysteries in American criminal history, inspiring books, films, and countless theories. Was he a deranged psychopath seeking attention, a master manipulator who enjoyed the fear he created, or was he someone hiding in plain sight, watching as his legend grew? The mystery of the Zodiac Killer continues to haunt investigators, and even after more than 50 years, the question remains: who was the Zodiac Killer? The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror spanned from the late 1960s to the early 1970s, leaving behind a trail of brutal murders, cryptic letters, and an unsolved mystery that still haunts investigators today. His crimes were not only terrifying, but also methodically planned, showing an unsettling level of intelligence and confidence. Here is a timeline of the Zodiac Killer's confirmed and suspected crimes, marking the horrifying path of one of history's most elusive murderers. December 20th, 1968, the first confirmed murders. On a cold December night, high school sweethearts Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17, were parked along Lake Herman Road near Vallejo, California. A mysterious figure approached their vehicle and, without warning, opened fire. David was shot in the head at close range, while Betty Lou tried to escape, but was shot 5 times in the back. The killer left the scene without taking anything from the victims. This would be the first known attack attributed to the Zodiac Killer, though at the time, no one knew that a serial murderer was beginning his spree. July 4th, 1969, the Blue Rock Springs attack. Just before midnight on Independence Day, another young couple, Darlene Farron, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, parked at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. A car pulled up behind them, briefly left, then returned. A man approached their vehicle and suddenly fired multiple rounds into the car. Darlene was killed instantly, while Michael miraculously survived despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest. Less than an hour after the attack, a chilling call was made to the Vallejo Police Department. A calm male voice confessed, "I just killed 2 people. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." This was a Zodiac Killer's first direct communication with law enforcement, and it marked the beginning of his taunting game. August 1st, 1969. The Zodiac letters appear. The killer's thirst for attention became evident when he sent 3 nearly identical letters to the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained a part of a cryptic cipher consisting of strange symbols and messages. He claimed that if decoded, the cipher would reveal his identity. He also included disturbing details about the murders that had not been released to the public, confirming that the writer was indeed the killer. One of the letters ended with an eerie threat. "If you do not print this cipher, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night." The newspapers published the ciphers, and within a week, a schoolteacher and his wife successfully cracked one of them. The message was terrifying. "I like killing because it is so much fun. It is more fun than hunting wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all." However, the message did not contain his name, leaving his identity a mystery. September 27, 1969. The Lake Berryessa stabbing. On a warm autumn afternoon, college students Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepard, 22, were enjoying a picnic at Lake Berryessa when a masked man approached them. Wearing a black executioner-style hood with a white cross-circle emblem on his chest, he held the couple at gunpoint. He claimed to be an escaped convict and needed their car to flee to Mexico. Then, without warning, he pulled out a knife and stabbed Brian 6 times and Cecilia 10 times before calmly walking away. He left behind a message written on their car door. Vallejo, December 20th, 68, July 4th, 69, September 27th, 69, 6:30. By knife. This confirmed that the same killer was responsible for multiple attacks. A few hours later, the Zodiac made another taunting call to the police from a payphone. "I just killed 2 people. You'll find them near Lake Berryessa." Brian miraculously survived, but Cecilia succumbed to her injuries 2 days later. October 11th, 1969. The San Francisco taxi murder. The Zodiac's next victim was Paul Stine, 29, a taxi driver in San Francisco. Unlike his previous attacks on young couples this time, he randomly chose a lone target. Paul picked up a passenger in the city, and as they reached their destination, the killer shot him in the head at point-blank range. Unlike before, Zodiac did not flee immediately. Instead, he wiped down the car to remove fingerprints, took a piece of Paul's bloody shirt, and casually walked away. 3 teenagers witnessed the crime from their window and called the police. However, due to a radio miscommunication, officers were looking for a black suspect instead of a white male. The real Zodiac Killer walked right past them and escaped. Days later, he sent a letter to the police with a piece of Paul's bloody shirt as proof, mocking the authorities for failing to catch him. November 8, 1969. The infamous 340 cipher. A month after Paul Stine's murder, the Zodiac sent another letter containing a new cipher known as the 340 cipher. This puzzle remained unsolved for over 51 years, finally being cracked in 2020 by a team of codebreakers. The message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." But once again, his name was missing. 1970 to 1974, the taunting continues. Over the next few years, Zodiac continued sending letters, making threats, and even claiming credit for crimes he may not have committed. He once threatened to attack a school bus, sending parents and authorities into a panic. Then in 1974, the letters stopped. The Zodiac Killer vanished without a trace, leaving behind an unsolved mystery that still fascinates and terrifies people today. Theories and speculation. Some believe the Zodiac was caught for another crime, while others think he died or simply stopped killing. Despite multiple suspects and new forensic methods, His identity remains unknown. The Zodiac Killer's timeline is one of fear, mystery, and unanswered questions. His crimes change how law enforcement handles serial killers and inspired countless books, movies, and investigations. Even after half a century, the search for his true identity continues. Was he a criminal mastermind, or just lucky enough to escape justice? The question remains unanswered. The Zodiac Killer was not just a murderer. He was a master manipulator who played a terrifying game with law enforcement and the media. His most infamous method of taunting the police was through a series of letters that contained disturbing threats, chilling confessions, and cryptic ciphers that still baffle experts today. These letters were not just messages. They were puzzles, challenges, and, most disturbingly, an insight into the mind of a killer who enjoyed the fear he created. The first letters, a killer introduces himself. On August 1st, 1969, three major newspapers in California, the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Times-Herald, received nearly identical letters. Each was handwritten and contained terrifying details about recent murders that had not been publicly released, proving that the sender was indeed the killer. Each letter also contained a different portion of a 408-character cipher, which, when combined, formed a complete message. The Zodiac demanded that the newspapers publish his ciphers on the front page, or he would go on a killing spree. One of the letters ended with a chilling sentence. "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than hunting wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all." This first letter introduced the world to a murderer unlike any other, one who didn't just kill, but enjoyed making a spectacle of it. The first cipher is cracked. The newspapers complied with the Zodiac's demand and published the cipher, hoping that someone would be able to decode it. Just a week later, a schoolteacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife Betty, successfully cracked the code. Instead of revealing his identity, the message simply boasted about his love for killing and his belief that he would be rewarded in the afterlife. It read, "I will not give you my name, because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." Despite cracking the first cipher, the Zodiac remained unidentified. He had played his first game, and he had won. The Zodiac claims more victims and sends more letters. Over the next few months, the Zodiac continued his reign of terror. Each time he struck, he followed up with another letter, mocking the police for their inability to catch him. His confidence grew with every unsolved crime, and his letters became bolder, more taunting, and even more disturbing. One of his letters contained a drawing of a bomb, along with detailed instructions on how he could use it to blow up a school bus full of children. This terrifying threat sent the entire state of California into a panic, leading police to take extraordinary precautions. But the Zodiac's most infamous letter was yet to come. The infamous 340 cipher, a puzzle that took 51 years to solve. On November 8, 1969, the Zodiac sent another cryptic message to the San Francisco Chronicle, this time a 340-character cipher. Unlike his first cipher, this one remained unsolved for more than 5 decades, becoming one of the most famous unsolved codes in history. It wasn't until December 2020 that a team of codebreakers from the US, Belgium, and Australia finally cracked the 340 cipher. The message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." Despite solving the cipher, once again, the Zodiac did not reveal his name. The message gave no new clues about his identity, leaving investigators just as frustrated as before. The Zodiac's final letters and mysterious disappearance. Between 1970 and 1974, the Zodiac continued sending letters, though his crimes appeared to stop. He claimed to have killed 37 people, though only 5 confirmed murders have been officially linked to him. In one of his later letters, he famously wrote, "Me, 37 SFD 0. He was keeping score, and he believed he was winning." Then, in 1974, the letters suddenly stopped. No one knows why the Zodiac disappeared. Did he die? Was he arrested for another crime under a different identity? Did he simply grow tired of his own game? Even today, people still analyze his letters, searching for hidden clues that might finally unmask the killer. His puzzles remain one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history, and his case continues to haunt both investigators and true crime enthusiasts around the world. The Zodiac Killer played a game of death, codes, and fear. And even after more than 50 years, the final piece of his puzzle is still missing. The Zodiac Killer's crimes were not just murders. They were calculated, taunting, and designed to instill fear. Each attack sent shockwaves through California, leaving behind terrified communities, frustrated investigators, and a growing sense that this killer was playing a game no one else could win. His victims had no connection to each other, chosen seemingly at random, making him even more unpredictable and terrifying. Here are the murders that shook America and solidified the Zodiac Killer as one of history's most infamous serial murderers. December 20th, 1968, the Lake Herman Road murders. The Zodiac's killing spree began on a cold winter night when Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17, a young couple on their first date, parked on a secluded road near Vallejo, California. They had no idea they were being watched. A car pulled up behind them, its headlights shining brightly into their vehicle. Within moments, the driver stepped out, approached them, and fired multiple shots. David was shot in the head at close range. Betty Lou tried to run, but was shot 5 times in the back before collapsing on the ground. There were no signs of robbery or sexual assault. The killer left without taking anything, making it clear that murder was the only motive. At the time, police had no idea they were dealing with a serial killer. This was only the beginning. July 4th, 1969, the Blue Rock Springs shooting. 7 months later, on Independence Day, Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, were parked at Blue Rock Springs Park, a spot known for young couples to hang out. Just after midnight, a vehicle pulled up beside them, briefly drove away, then returned. Without warning, the driver stepped out and fired 5 shots into the car. As Michael groaned in pain, the shooter walked away but suddenly turned back and fired 5 more shots. Miraculously, Michael survived despite severe injuries. Darlene, however, died before reaching the hospital. Less than an hour later, the Vallejo Police Department received a chilling phone call. "I want to report a murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you'll find kids in a brown car. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." The voice was calm, emotionless. The Zodiac Killer had just introduced himself to the world. September 27, 1969, the Lake Berryessa attack. This time, the killer changed his method. On a sunny afternoon, college students Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepard, 22, were having a picnic by Lake Berryessa when a man dressed in an executioner-style black hood approached them. On his chest was a symbol, a cross circle, the soon-to-be infamous Zodiac emblem. Claiming to be an escaped convict, he told them he needed their car to flee to Mexico. But his true intentions were much darker. He tied them up, pulled out a foot-long knife, and stabbed Brian 6 times and Cecilia 10 times before calmly walking away. He then took a black marker and wrote on Brian's car door, "Vallejo, December 20th, 68, July 4th, 69, September 27th, 69, 6:30 by knife." A few hours later, a call was made to the Napa County Police. "I want to report a murder, a double murder. I am the one who did it." Brian miraculously survived, but Cecilia died 2 days later. October 11th, 1969, the San Francisco taxi murder. Unlike his previous attacks on young couples, this time the Zodiac targeted a lone taxi driver, Paul Stein, 29. Late at night in San Francisco, Paul picked up a passenger who requested a ride to the upscale Presidio Heights neighborhood. As they arrived at the destination, the passenger pulled out a gun and shot Paul in the head. This time, the Zodiac did not flee immediately. Instead, he wiped down the car to remove fingerprints, cut off a piece of Paul's bloody shirt, and casually walked away. 3 teenage witnesses saw everything from their window and called 911. But due to a police radio mistake, officers were searching for a black suspect instead of a white male. The real Zodiac walked right past the police and vanished into the night. Days later, he sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, enclosing the piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt as proof that he was the killer. He mocked the police, bragging about how easily he had escaped. The Zodiac's claimed victims: truth or mind games. The Zodiac was confirmed to have killed 5 people, but in his letters, he claimed responsibility for 37 murders. Some of his letters even contained maps and details of other potential attacks. In one letter, he wrote, "I shall no longer announce to anyone when I commit my murders. They shall look like routine robberies, killings of anger, and a few fake accidents, etc." Despite investigating multiple unsolved cases that could have been linked to the Zodiac, police could never confirm if he was truly responsible for more than the 5 confirmed killings. Why was he never caught? The Zodiac was meticulous. He left no fingerprints. His handwriting was inconsistent, and he switched his methods, making it difficult to track him. Witnesses described him differently each time. Despite multiple suspects being investigated, no one was ever charged. The Zodiac's murders were not just crimes. They were a horrifying puzzle. He didn't just kill. He turned his crimes into a game of fear, riddles, and taunts, leaving behind more questions than answers. His case remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history, a reminder that even the most infamous serial killers can sometimes escape justice. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror began with a brutal double murder that would mark the start of one of the most infamous serial killer cases in American history. His first confirmed attack took place on December 20th, 1968, on a cold winter night near Vallejo, California. It was a night that seemed like any other, but by the end of it, 2 teenagers would be dead, and a serial killer would begin his terrifying game. A quiet date night turns into horror. Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17, were high school sweethearts. On that fateful Friday evening, they had planned a simple date, one that involved stopping at a friend's house and then driving to a secluded lover's lane along Lake Herman Road, a dark and isolated stretch frequently visited by young couples. Sitting in David's Rambler station wagon, they talked, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company, unaware that someone was watching them from the darkness. At approximately 10:15 p.m., a car pulled up beside them. A man stepped out and approached their vehicle. There was no warning, no exchange of words, just sudden, brutal violence. The first shots are fired. Investigators later reconstructed the scene based on forensic evidence. The attacker fired a warning shot, possibly to force the couple out of the car. David, trying to protect Betty Lou, stepped out first. Within moments, he was shot in the head at close range, collapsing to the ground. Betty Lou panicked and ran for her life, but she never had a chance. The killer aimed and fired 5 shots into her back, each bullet tearing through her body as she fell lifeless onto the gravel, just 30 feet from the car. The killer did not steal anything, did not sexually assault his victims, and did not leave behind any clues that pointed to a motive. He simply vanished into the night, leaving behind only fear and confusion. No suspects, no leads. A killer remains a ghost. When police arrived, they were met with a horrifying scene. The cold night air was filled with the eerie silence of death. Betty Lou's lifeless body lay stretched on the ground, blood pooling beneath her. David was still breathing but barely alive. He was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his injuries before he could say a word. The investigation quickly began, but there were no witnesses, no clear motive, and no suspects. Local authorities were baffled. The crime seemed senseless, almost random, yet it was executed with precision and brutality. Was it just a random killing? At first, detectives believed it could have been an isolated attack, a tragic case of a couple being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some speculated that it was the work of a jealous ex-boyfriend, a thrill killer, or even a random act of violence. But What no one knew at the time was that this was only the beginning. The true horror of this crime would not be realized until 6 months later, when another attack occurred under eerily similar circumstances. This time, however, the killer would do something new. He would announce his presence to the world. It was only later, when the Zodiac Killer began sending letters to newspapers and taking credit for multiple murders, that investigators linked this crime to a serial killer. The first attack had been a test, a prelude to something much bigger. A legacy of fear begins. With the Lake Herman Road murders, the Zodiac Killer introduced himself in blood. He left no clues, no fingerprints, and no trace of his identity. His crime was swift, ruthless, and terrifyingly calculated. This first attack set the pattern for what would come next. Secluded locations, young couples, unexpected violence, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The killer had started his deadly game, and soon, he would make sure the world knew his name. On December 20th, 1968, a cold and eerie night fell over Lake Herman Road, an isolated stretch near Vallejo, California. The quiet darkness of the area was broken only by the distant sounds of rustling trees and the occasional passing car. Two young high school sweethearts, Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17. This was supposed to be a peaceful evening together. Instead, it became the horrifying beginning of one of the most notorious serial killer cases in American history. A romantic evening turns into a nightmare. Betty Lou and David were a typical teenage couple, deeply in love and looking forward to spending time together. That night, after attending a Christmas concert at their high school, they decided to take a short drive before heading home. Around 10:15 p.m., they parked David's Rambler station wagon in a remote turnout along Lake Herman Road, a well-known spot for young couples. Unknown to them, they were being watched. Somewhere in the darkness, a killer was waiting. The moment of terror. Shortly after they parked, another car pulled up beside them. Its headlights shined directly into their vehicle, blinding them momentarily. Before they could react, a man stepped out, gun in hand. Investigators believe he first fired a warning shot into the car, forcing David and Betty Lou out. The couple, likely terrified, complied, not realizing they were about to face something far worse than robbery. Without hesitation, the attacker shot David in the head at close range, killing him instantly. Betty Lou, in a desperate attempt to escape, turned and ran toward the open field beside the road. She barely made it 30 feet before the killer raised his gun again and fired 5 shots into her back. She collapsed on the ground, her body motionless in the cold December night. The killer stood over his victims for a moment, then disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a scene of absolute horror. The crime scene, no clues, no answers. A passing motorist discovered the bodies around 11 p.m. and immediately contacted the police. When authorities arrived, they found David lying beside the car, his head bleeding from a gunshot wound, and Betty Lou face down in the gravel, her blood forming a dark pool beneath her. Strangely, nothing was stolen. The victims' wallets, jewelry, and personal belongings were untouched. There was no sign of sexual assault or any known personal motive. The randomness of the attack puzzled investigators. Why had the killer executed them with such brutality but taken nothing? Was this a thrill kill or something even more sinister? A killer without a face. With no witnesses and little evidence, detectives struggled to piece together the events of that night. The bullets recovered at the scene came from a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol, but there were no fingerprints, no footprints, and no direct leads. Initially, the police considered possibilities, such as a jealous ex-boyfriend, a robbery gone wrong, or a random act of violence. But none of these theories fully explained the methodical nature of the attack. For months, the case remained a frightening mystery. The small community of Vallejo was left in shock and fear. Parents warned their children about going out late at night. Couples avoided remote areas. No one knew who the killer was or if he would strike again. The Zodiac Killer steps into the spotlight. It wasn't until July 4th, 1969, when another young couple was attacked in a strikingly similar fashion, that detectives began to suspect something far more sinister was at play. Then, in August 1969, a chilling letter arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle from a person claiming responsibility for the Lake Herman Road murders. The letter was signed with a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it. For the first time, the world was introduced to a name that would forever be linked to fear, mystery, and unsolved crimes: the Zodiac Killer, the beginning of a nightmare. The Lake Herman Road murders were just the first act in the Zodiac's deadly game. The attack set the pattern for the terrifying crimes that would follow: secluded locations, young couples as targets, sudden execution-style killings. No clear motive, just pure terror. This was not the work of an ordinary criminal. This was the start of a calculated, sadistic, and methodical murderer who wanted to be known. As the investigation deepened, one chilling fact became clear. This was only the beginning. Blue Rock Springs attack. The survivor's haunting testimony. The night of July 4th, 1969, was supposed to be a night of celebration in Vallejo, California. Fireworks lit up the sky, and people enjoyed the Independence Day festivities. But for Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, the night ended in a brutal and senseless attack that would haunt the only survivor for the rest of his life. It was the second confirmed attack by the Zodiac Killer, and this time, someone lived to tell the terrifying story. A late-night drive turns deadly. Darlene Ferrin, a young and vibrant waitress, was well-liked and had no known enemies. That night, she picked up Michael Mageau, a quiet but friendly teenager, for a late-night drive. They drove to Blue Rock Springs Park, a popular spot where couples often went to talk in private. The area was dark and isolated, with only the sound of distant fireworks breaking the silence. They parked the car and began talking, unaware that someone was watching them from the shadows. The killer arrives. At around midnight, a car slowly approached and parked about 10 feet away. At first, Michael thought it was a police officer checking on them, but the vehicle soon drove away. Moments later, the same car returned. This time, a man stepped out, holding a flashlight and a gun. Without warning, he aimed directly at them and fired 5 shots. The bright flash from the muzzle blinded Michael as bullets tore through the car. Darlene was hit multiple times, slumping over the steering wheel, bleeding heavily. Michael was shot in the face, neck, and chest but somehow remained conscious. The killer started walking away but suddenly turned back. Michael, barely able to see, watched in horror as the man fired more shots at Darlene, ensuring she was dead. Without saying a word, the shooter calmly walked back to his car and drove off into the night. The survivor's terrifying escape. Despite his severe injuries, Michael somehow survived. He was bleeding profusely and in excruciating pain, but he managed to crawl out of the car and call for help. A passing motorist spotted him and rushed to get assistance. When police and paramedics arrived, they found a horrific scene. Darlene was motionless, gasping for breath but unable to speak. She died before she could be taken to the hospital. Michael, however, survived, and what he told police changed everything. The survivor's chilling testimony. Lying in a hospital bed, barely able to speak, Michael provided the first real description of the Zodiac Killer. He described the attacker as a heavy-set man, around 5 feet 8 inches to 5 feet 10 inches, wearing dark clothing. His hair was short and light brown. But the most disturbing part of Michael's testimony was what the killer did not do. He didn't steal anything. He didn't say a single word before opening fire. He didn't seem nervous or rushed. He was calm, methodical, and precise. This was not a robbery, not a crime of passion. This was a calculated execution. A chilling phone call. Less than an hour after the shooting, the Vallejo Police Department received a call from a calm male voice. "I want to report a murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They have been shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." The caller was cold, emotionless, and direct. He knew details of the crime that had not been released. The call was traced to a phone booth near a gas station, but by the time officers arrived, the caller was gone. This was the first time the Zodiac Killer officially announced himself. The Zodiac letter arrives. A few weeks later, newspapers received the first letter from the Zodiac. He took credit for the Blue Rock Springs attack and the Lake Herman Road murders. Along with the letter, he sent 3 coded ciphers, daring the police and public to solve them. The Zodiac was no ordinary killer. He was playing a game of death, puzzles, and fear. The aftermath, a haunting legacy. Michael Mageau survived, but he was physically and emotionally scarred for life. His testimony gave police their first real description of the Zodiac, but it was not enough to catch him. Darlene Ferrin became the Zodiac's most famous victim, with countless theories surrounding her murder. Some believed the killer knew her personally, while others thought she was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. This attack cemented the Zodiac Killer as a serial murderer unlike any other. He didn't just kill, he taunted, he terrorized, and he wanted the world to know his name. The Blue Rock Springs attack was just the beginning of a horror story that would span years. The Zodiac was far from finished. Lake Berryessa stabbing. When the Zodiac appeared in broad daylight, on September 27, 1969, a peaceful afternoon at Lake Berryessa turned into one of the most terrifying encounters with the Zodiac Killer. Unlike his previous attacks, this one happened in broad daylight, with the killer appearing before his victims, fully masked, and leaving behind chilling evidence of his presence. This attack was not just about killing. It was a carefully orchestrated act meant to spread terror. A perfect day turned nightmare. That afternoon, college students Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepard, 22, decided to spend the day by the shore of Lake Berryessa, a scenic and quiet location near Napa, California. They sat on a grassy peninsula overlooking the lake, talking, laughing, and enjoying the peaceful surroundings. But someone was watching them. The Zodiac emerges. At approximately 6:15 p.m., Cecilia noticed a man lurking behind a tree about 50 feet away. Within moments, he stepped forward and began walking toward them. He was unlike anything they had ever seen. He wore a black executioner-style hood that completely covered his face. On his chest, he had a white cross-circle emblem, the same symbol he used in his letters. He carried a gun in one hand and pre-cut lengths of plastic rope in the other. This was no ordinary criminal. This was a Zodiac Killer, revealing himself for the first and only time in a face-to-face attack. A chilling encounter. Brian and Cecilia, frozen in shock, watched as the masked man calmly approached them. Then he spoke. In a deep, controlled voice, he claimed to be an escaped convict from Montana who had killed a guard and needed money, food, and a getaway car. "I just want your car keys and some cash. If you cooperate, you won't get hurt." His tone was calm, almost rehearsed, as if he had planned every word. Brian, hoping to de-escalate the situation, quickly agreed and handed over his car keys. But what happened next revealed the true horror of the Zodiac's intentions. The attack. The Zodiac ordered Brian and Cecilia to lie face down on the ground. He then took out the pre-cut plastic cords and tied their hands tightly behind their backs. At that moment, Brian felt a strange sense of relief. If he just wanted the car, why would he tie us up? Maybe he really is going to leave. But Cecilia sensed something different. "He's going to hurt us," she whispered. She was right. Without warning, the Zodiac pulled out a large, foot-long knife and began stabbing them mercilessly. He stabbed Brian 6 times in the back, each wound deep and precise. He stabbed Cecilia 10 times, attacking her with even greater force. The couple screamed in agony, but the remote location ensured no one could hear them, leaving a signature behind. After the brutal attack, the Zodiac walked calmly back to Brian's car. Using a black marker, he wrote on the car door, "Vallejo, December 20th, 68, July 4th, 69, September 27th, 69, 6:30. By knife." It was a direct reference to his previous murders, marking this as another Zodiac crime scene. The killer's call. At 7:40 p.m., about an hour after the attack, the Napa Police Department received a disturbing phone call from a nearby payphone. The voice on the other end was calm, emotionless, and deliberate. "I want to report a murder." "No!" "A double murder. They are 2 miles north of Park headquarters." They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. Then he simply hung up. The call was traced to a phone booth near a car wash, but by the time police arrived, the Zodiac was gone. A survivor's chilling account. Miraculously, Brian Hartnell survived. Despite losing a tremendous amount of blood, he remained conscious long enough to describe the attacker to police. Cecilia, however, was not as lucky. She slipped into a coma and passed away 2 days later. From his hospital bed, Brian recalled every detail. The killer was about 5 feet 8 inches to 6 feet tall. He had a deep, slow voice, as if controlling his breathing. His black executioners had concealed his face, revealing only dark glasses through the eye holes. His description confirmed that this was the same person responsible for the previous Zodiac murders. Why did he change his method? This attack was different from the previous ones. It happened during the daytime, rather than at night. He used a knife instead of a gun. He spoke to his victims, something he had never done before. Some believe he was experimenting with new ways to kill, while others think he wanted to instill even more terror by making his victims suffer. Whatever his reason, this attack proved that the Zodiac was becoming more confident, more brutal, and more unpredictable. The legacy of fear. The Lake Berryessa attack is one of the most chilling crimes in the Zodiac case because it was the only time he directly interacted with his victims. Unlike his previous crimes, this one left behind a living witness, Brian Hartnell, who provided crucial details about the killer's behavior. But even with this information, police were no closer to catching him. The Zodiac had won again, and he wasn't finished yet. The Paul Stine murder. The killer who walked away. On the night of October 11th, 1969, the streets of San Francisco's upscale Presidio Heights neighborhood were quiet. It was an ordinary Saturday night, until a routine taxi ride turned into one of the most brazen and chilling murders committed by the Zodiac Killer. Unlike his previous attacks on young couples in secluded areas, this time, the Zodiac did something unexpected. He killed a lone taxi driver in the middle of a busy city, in an area filled with people, and then casually walked away, right past the police. This murder was different. It proved that the Zodiac was not only a cold-blooded killer, but also a calculated manipulator who enjoyed outsmarting the police. A routine taxi ride turns deadly. Paul Stine, 29, was a hard-working taxi driver, just trying to make a living. That night, he picked up a passenger in downtown San Francisco. The passenger's request was simple: a ride to the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets, an upper-class residential neighborhood near the Presidio military base. At 9:55 p.m., as the taxi came to a stop, the passenger pulled out a gun and fired a single shot into the back of Paul Stine's head at point-blank range. Paul's body slumped over the steering wheel, his lifeless hands still gripping it. Unlike his previous attacks, the Zodiac did not flee immediately. Instead, he remained at the scene, calmly wiping down the taxi's interior to remove fingerprints. Then, he took a gruesome souvenir, tearing off a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt and putting it in his pocket. With no sign of urgency, he opened the door and walked away. Eyewitnesses watched the Zodiac walk free. Across the street, 3 teenage witnesses watched everything unfold from their second-story window. They immediately called the police and described the suspect as a man around 5 feet 8 inches to 5 feet 10 inches, stocky, wearing glasses and a dark jacket. As police units responded to the call, a critical mistake was made. A radio dispatcher mistakenly announced that the suspect was black. Minutes later, 2 patrol officers driving through the area actually saw the real Zodiac Killer walking away from the crime scene. Believing they were looking for a black suspect, they ignored the stocky white man casually strolling past them. By the time the error was corrected, the Zodiac had vanished into the night. The Zodiac's ultimate taunt. Just days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac Killer in which he took credit for the murder of Paul Stine. To prove he was telling the truth, he included a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt inside the envelope. The letter mocked the police for their failure to catch him. "I am the murderer of the taxi driver. The police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly." He then issued a new, terrifying threat, stating that he planned to attack a school bus full of children, shooting out the front tire and picking off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. This sent the entire city of San Francisco into a panic. Police escorted school buses. Parents were terrified, and authorities were no closer to stopping him. How this murder changed the case. Paul Stine's murder was different from the Zodiac's previous crimes. It happened in a crowded city, not in a remote lover's lane. He killed a lone victim instead of a couple. He stayed at the crime scene instead of fleeing immediately. He took a piece of evidence, Paul's shirt, and sent it to the media. This crime proved that the Zodiac was unpredictable. He was not just a killer. He was playing a game, and he was winning. The final twist. A potential break in the case? A few weeks after the murder, a police sketch of the Zodiac was released based on the witnesses' descriptions. He was described as a stocky white male, between 5 feet 8 inches and 5 feet 10 inches, wearing glasses, aged around 35 to 45 years old. Despite the clear sketch and multiple witnesses, police never arrested a suspect for the crime. To this day, the Zodiac Killer's identity remains a mystery, and the murder of Paul Stine remains one of the boldest, most baffling crimes in the history of serial killers. The murder that proved the Zodiac could kill anywhere. With the Paul Stine murder, the Zodiac proved he could strike anywhere at any time without warning. He escaped in plain sight, toyed with the police, and left behind a city gripped in fear. Even decades later, the question remains: who was the Zodiac Killer? And how did he get away with murder? The Zodiac ciphers, puzzles that still remain unsolved. The Zodiac Killer was not just a murderer. He was a mastermind of mystery, using cryptic codes and ciphers to taunt the police, the media, and the public. His puzzles were more than just a game. They were a terrifying challenge, daring anyone to uncover his true identity. Some of his ciphers have been cracked, but others remain unsolved, leaving behind one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history. The first cipher, the 408-character code, solved. On August 1st, 1969, 3 newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Times-Herald, received nearly identical letters from the Zodiac. Each letter included 1/3 of a 408-character cipher, which the killer claimed contained his identity. The Zodiac demanded that the newspapers publish his cipher on the front page, or he would go on a killing spree. Within a week, a schoolteacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty successfully cracked the code. The message inside was chilling. "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name, because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The message revealed the Zodiac's twisted mindset, but one crucial detail was missing: his name. He had tricked everyone, keeping his identity a mystery while fueling even more fear. The 340-character cipher, a mystery that took 51 years to solve. On November 8, 1969, the Zodiac sent another letter, this time with a new, more complex cipher, a 340-character puzzle that would take over 5 decades to decode. For years, cryptographers, amateur code breakers, and even the FBI tried to crack the code, but it remained a mystery. Then, in December 2020, a team of experts from the U.S., Belgium, and Australia finally solved it. The decrypted message read, I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death. Despite solving the cipher, the Zodiac's name was missing once again. He had left behind another riddle, another mind game, and another unanswered question. The Z13 cipher, my name is Unsolved. On April 20th, 1970, the Zodiac sent a short cipher known as the Z13 cipher. It contained only 13 characters and was introduced with the words, "My name is..." The cipher was AN plus 8K9 plus T. Many believe this was finally the key to the Zodiac's identity, but even after decades of effort, the Z13 cipher remains unsolved. The Z32 cipher, the map to a bomb, unsolved. In another letter sent on June 26, 1970, the Zodiac included a 32-character cipher that he claimed would reveal the location of a bomb he had planted somewhere in the San Francisco area. The letter read, "The map coupled with this code will tell you where the bomb is set. You have until next fall to dig it up." A map of Mount Diablo was included, with a crosshair symbol at its center. Despite multiple theories and investigations, no bomb was ever found, and the cipher remains unsolved. The final mystery, the 1971 unsolved letter, one of the Zodiac's last known letters, sent in 1971, contained a strange symbol that some believe hides his real name. However, after decades of analysis, no one has successfully extracted a name from it. Many theorists believe that Zodiac hid his name within multiple ciphers, possibly by using anagram techniques or numerical patterns. Others argue that he never intended to reveal his identity. He simply wanted to continue his twisted game forever. Why are some of the Zodiac ciphers still unsolved? There are several reasons why these ciphers remain a mystery. Complexity. The Zodiac may have used multiple encryption methods to make his codes harder to solve. Misdirection. Some experts believe that certain ciphers were designed to be unsolvable, meant to waste time and confuse investigators. Missing information. If a cipher requires a specific key to decode it, that key might have been lost, making it impossible to crack. The Zodiac's legacy of mystery. Even after more than 50 years, the Zodiac's unsolved ciphers continue to fascinate and frustrate experts. With advancements in AI and cryptographic analysis, there is hope that one day his remaining puzzles will finally be solved. But the biggest question still lingers. Did the Zodiac ever really leave his name in his ciphers? Or was it all just another cruel joke from a killer who wanted to be remembered forever? The 408 cipher, the first code cracked. What did it reveal? On August 1st, 1969, 3 major newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Times-Herald, received nearly identical letters. Each was handwritten, filled with spelling errors, disturbing statements, and chilling threats. The sender claimed to be responsible for the Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs murders. But these letters were more than just confessions. Each contained 1/3 of a coded message, forming what would later be known as the 408-character cipher. The Zodiac demanded that the newspapers publish the cipher on their front pages, or he would go on a killing spree. The world had just received the first direct challenge from the Zodiac Killer. The race to solve the code. Law enforcement, professional cryptographers, and amateur codebreakers rushed to decipher the Zodiac's cryptic message. Then, just 1 week later, a schoolteacher named Donald Hardin and his wife, Betty, cracked the 408-character code. Their discovery sent chills down the spines of everyone who read it. The chilling message inside. The decoded message read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name, because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. The message revealed the dark and twisted mindset of the Zodiac Killer. He did not kill for revenge, money, or passion. He killed simply because he enjoyed it. It also gave insight into his bizarre belief system, where he saw his victims as slaves for his afterlife. This idea aligned with certain occult or cult-like ideologies, suggesting the Zodiac may have been influenced by obscure religious or philosophical beliefs. But his name was missing. Despite claiming that his cipher contained his identity, the Zodiac did not include his name in the decrypted message. This frustrated investigators, who had hoped the cipher would finally reveal the killer's true identity. Instead, the Zodiac had tricked them all. He had played a game of deception, leaving them with more questions than answers. Did the Zodiac hide another clue? Some theorists believe that his real name was hidden using an anagram or a secondary cipher within the 408-character code. However, no conclusive evidence has ever proven this theory. What is certain is that this first decoded message established the Zodiac's pattern. He would taunt, manipulate, and mislead investigators while continuing his killing spree. The Zodiac's next move, after the 408 cipher was solved, many expected the Zodiac to disappear or go into hiding. Instead, he became even bolder. He sent more letters, introduced new, more complex ciphers, and mocked the police for failing to catch him. The 408 cipher was only the beginning. The Zodiac had made his first move in a deadly game of cat and mouse, a game that remains unsolved to this day. The mysterious 340 cipher, deciphered after 51 years. The shocking truth. On November 8, 1969, the San Francisco Chronicle received another chilling letter from the Zodiac Killer. This time, it contained a 340-character cipher, which became one of the most famous unsolved codes in criminal history. For over 5 decades, cryptographers, law enforcement agencies, and amateur codebreakers attempted to crack it, but failed. Then, in December 2020, after 51 years, a team of international codebreakers finally deciphered the 340 cipher, revealing a disturbing message from the Zodiac Killer, a code that stumped experts for decades. Unlike his first 408-character cipher, which was cracked within a week, the 340 cipher proved to be much more difficult. The Zodiac used an advanced encryption technique, making it impossible to crack using standard methods. The arrangement of the symbols was not linear. The message zigzagged in diagonal patterns, further confusing cryptographers. The cipher did not contain a name, frustrating investigators who hoped it would reveal the killer's identity. For years, the FBI, CIA, and amateur codebreakers worked tirelessly to solve it, but the puzzle remained a mystery. Then, in 2020, a breakthrough finally came. The breakthrough, solving the 340 cipher. A team of codebreakers, led by David Orenchak, USA, Jarl Van Eyck, Belgium, and Sam Blake, Australia, used a specially designed computer algorithm to finally decode the Zodiac's message. What they discovered was chilling. The decrypted message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death." What the message reveals about the Zodiac. This message confirms several things about the Zodiac Killer. He was watching the media closely. He referenced a TV show where someone falsely claimed to be him. He believed in an afterlife. He once again mentioned his slaves in paradise, a disturbing ideology first mentioned in his 408 cipher. He wasn't afraid of being caught. He mocked law enforcement, showing no fear of the death penalty or prison. He enjoyed playing mind games. The message contained no real clues about his identity, proving that he was more interested in taunting police than getting caught. Did the cipher contain his name? One of the biggest theories about the 340 cipher was that the Zodiac had hidden his real name inside it. But after decoding the message, his name was nowhere to be found. This frustrated investigators, who had hoped this cipher would finally reveal his identity. Some experts believe the Zodiac purposely designed the cipher to mislead the police, while others think he may have hidden his name in another unsolved code. Why did it take 51 years to solve? The Zodiac intentionally made the 340 cipher more complex than the first one. He scrambled the letters in diagonal patterns instead of simple rows and columns. He added fake symbols to throw off codebreakers. His handwritten ciphers contained inconsistencies, making them harder to analyze. Even the FBI admitted that the solution was so complex that it could only be solved with modern computer algorithms. The Zodiac's response. After the cipher was solved in December 2020, the FBI issued an official statement confirming its authenticity. However, the Zodiac Killer had long disappeared, and no new letters followed. Had he died? Had he stopped playing his deadly game? Even with this breakthrough, the Zodiac's true identity remains unknown. The last mystery, the unsolved Z13 and Z32 ciphers. While the 340 cipher has been solved, 2 more ciphers from the Zodiac remain unsolved. The Z13 cipher, which starts with the words "my name is," but has never been cracked. The Z32 cipher, which supposedly reveals the location of a hidden bomb. Some believe the Zodiac's real name is hidden in one of these ciphers, while others think he was only playing games all along. The legacy of the 340 cipher. The 51-year mystery of the 340 cipher proves one thing. The Zodiac was not just a serial killer, but a mastermind of deception and terror. Even though the code has been cracked, his identity remains one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history. The Zodiac wanted to be remembered, and even after half a century, he still is. Decoding the Zodiac. How cryptographers and amateurs tried to crack the codes. The Zodiac Killer's ciphers became one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Unlike most serial killers, he didn't just kill. He played a terrifying game, sending cryptic messages to newspapers, taunting law enforcement, and daring the world to uncover his identity. His ciphers puzzled cryptographers, FBI experts, mathematicians, and amateur codebreakers for decades. Some were solved, but others remain unbroken to this day, leaving behind an enduring mystery. The first attempt, cracking the 408-character cipher. The first Zodiac cipher, the 408-character cipher, arrived in 3 parts on August 1st, 1969. It was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Times-Herald, with a demand that it be published on the front page, or the Zodiac would kill again. Law enforcement and cryptographers immediately began working on the puzzle. But the ones who solved it were not professionals. It was a schoolteacher and his wife. Donald and Betty Harden, a couple from Salinas, California, cracked the code just 1 week after it was published. Their method was simple. They looked for common words like kill and I. They analyzed repeating symbols, assuming the Zodiac's grammar would be similar to normal speech. Eventually, they matched letters to symbols, revealing the chilling message. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. But one crucial part was missing: his name. The FBI and CIA step in. The hunt for patterns. After the 408 cipher was solved, the Zodiac upped his game, sending a new, more complex cipher, the 340-character cipher, in November 1969. This time, the code stumped everyone. The FBI and CIA used their best cryptographers to analyze the cipher. They looked for common letter patterns that could indicate frequently used words, mathematical sequences that could suggest a hidden code structure, historical ciphers that the Zodiac might have borrowed from. But nothing worked. For decades, the 340 cipher remained unsolved. The rise of amateur codebreakers. By the 1990s and 2000s, independent cryptographers, true crime enthusiasts, and internet sleuths started tackling the Zodiac ciphers on their own. Online forums and groups were formed dedicated to breaking the codes. Some of the most common theories included: the Zodiac was using an unknown encryption method. The Zodiac mixed real words with gibberish to confuse solvers. His ciphers contained hidden layers of meaning, like anagrams or reverse words. Despite countless efforts, no one could crack the 340 cipher. The breakthrough: the 340 cipher is finally solved 2020. For 51 years, the 340-character cipher remained a mystery until December 2020. A team of 3 codebreakers, David Orenchak, USA, Jarl van Eyck, Belgium, and Sam Blake, Australia, finally cracked the Zodiac's second cipher using a custom-built algorithm. The breakthrough came when they realized the cipher was not written in straight lines. It had to be read diagonally. The Zodiac misspelled words and inserted meaningless letters to throw off solvers. Once rearranged, the real message appeared. The decoded message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death." Just like the 408 cipher, the Zodiac refused to include his real name. The unsolved ciphers, Z13 and Z32. Even with the 408 cipher and 340 cipher cracked, 2 mysteries remain. 1. The Z13 cipher, April 20th, 1970. A 13-character message that starts with the words, "My name is." 2. The Z32 cipher, June 26, 1970. A 32-character code that supposedly reveals the location of a hidden bomb. Despite decades of efforts, both ciphers remain unsolved. Was the Zodiac smarter than everyone else? Some experts believe the remaining ciphers are unsolvable either because the Zodiac deliberately mixed real words with gibberish to ensure no one could crack them. The key needed to decode them was never provided. He wanted to trick the police and the public, leaving behind an eternal mystery. The legacy of the Zodiac ciphers. The Zodiac ciphers have become a symbol of the ultimate criminal puzzle. Even with modern technology and advanced cryptographic techniques, some of his codes still refuse to be solved. For decades, cryptographers, law enforcement, and amateur sleuths have tried and failed to fully decode his messages. And until the last 2 ciphers are cracked, the final mystery of the Zodiac Killer remains unsolved. The police chase. How close were investigators to catching the Zodiac? For decades, law enforcement agencies, FBI profilers, and amateur sleuths have hunted the Zodiac Killer, but despite numerous leads, he was never caught. He played a twisted game with the police, taunting them through letters and phone calls, always staying one step ahead. But how close did the police really come to capturing him? Were they ever on the verge of unmasking the Zodiac? And what went wrong in the investigation? The night police almost confronted the Zodiac. One of the most frustrating missed opportunities in the Zodiac case happened on October 11th, 1969, after the murder of taxi driver Paul Stein in San Francisco's Presidio Heights. At 9:55 p.m., the Zodiac shot Paul Stein in the head and took a piece of his bloody shirt as a trophy. Witnesses across the street saw the killer wipe down the car and casually walk away. They called 911 immediately, giving the police a detailed description of the suspect. Within minutes, 2 police officers, Donald Falk and Eric Zelms, were patrolling the area and spotted a man matching the Zodiac's description just a few blocks away. But due to a radio dispatcher's error, officers were told to look for a black suspect instead of a white male. The real Zodiac Killer walked right past them, and they let him go. Later, the Zodiac mocked the police in a letter, saying, "2 cops pulled a goof about 3 minutes after I left the cab. They should have searched the park properly instead of yelling at people asking if they saw anyone acting suspicious. They could have caught me. This was the closest the police ever came to catching him, and they let him slip away." The eyewitness sketch, a face to the killer? After the Paul Stein murder, The three teenage witnesses helped police create a sketch of the Zodiac Killer. Stocky, around 5 feet 8 inches to 5 feet 10 inches. Light brown or reddish blonde hair. Thick-rimmed glasses. Wearing a dark jacket. This was one of the few times the Zodiac's face was described, yet no one recognized him. The handwriting analysis. A missed clue? Every Zodiac letter was carefully analyzed by forensic handwriting experts. The style of writing was consistent across all the letters. He used odd spellings and grammar mistakes, possibly on purpose to mislead investigators. Some suspected the killer intentionally changed his handwriting to avoid detection. Over the years, police compared several suspects' handwriting to the Zodiac's letters, but none were a perfect match. The FBI's psychological profile. Who was a Zodiac? The FBI created a psychological profile of the Zodiac, believing he was highly intelligent, with an interest in cryptography and ciphers, a loner with possible military or law enforcement training, someone who wanted attention but was careful not to get caught, possibly working an ordinary job, blending into society. Despite this profile, the Zodiac remained undetected. DNA evidence. Did the Zodiac leave a trace? In the early 2000s, investigators tested DNA samples from the Zodiac letters, the envelopes he licked, the bloody shirt from Paul Stein's murder. But the results were inconclusive. Some partial DNA was found, but not enough to make an exact match. The Zodiac may have used gloves or had someone else lick the envelopes, making DNA tracing useless. This was another frustrating dead end for police. Multiple suspects, no arrests. Over the years, hundreds of people were suspected of being the Zodiac. Some of the most well-known include Arthur Lee Allen, the primary suspect, but his DNA didn't match and his handwriting was inconsistent. Gary Francis Post, recently identified by an independent group but officially unconfirmed. Lawrence Kane matched descriptions and was linked to missing persons cases. Rick Marshall and Earl Van Best Jr., both considered possible suspects but with weak evidence. Each suspect had some evidence pointing toward them, but none had enough proof for an arrest. Why was the Zodiac never caught? Despite multiple leads, the Zodiac remained a ghost. Several key reasons explain why. No clear motive. He didn't follow traditional patterns, making it hard to predict his next move. He changed methods, gun, knife, day, night. His attacks varied, making profiling difficult. He left no forensic evidence. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing solid to track him. He blended into society. He could have been anyone, a teacher, a cop, a store clerk. Did the Zodiac disappear? By 1974, the Zodiac's letters stopped. Many theories suggest he died or was imprisoned for another crime. He moved away and started a new life. He simply lost interest in the game. Even with modern technology, no solid leads have emerged. The final verdict. How close did police get? The truth is, police came extremely close to catching the Zodiac, especially after the Paul Stein murder. If not for a radio mistake, he might have been arrested that night. But in the end, he outsmarted the police. The Zodiac Killer's identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Will he ever be unmasked? Or did he take his secrets to the grave? The prime suspects, Arthur Lee Allen, Gary Francis Post, and more. The Zodiac Killer case has remained unsolved for over 5 decades, but law enforcement and amateur sleuths have investigated several key suspects. Some had compelling evidence against them, while others seemed to be distractions. Among them, 2 names stand out the most: Arthur Lee Allen and Gary Francis Post, both considered the strongest contenders for the identity of the Zodiac. But were they really the killer, or is the Zodiac's identity still a mystery? Arthur Lee Allen, the original prime suspect. For years, Arthur Lee Allen was the top suspect in the Zodiac case. Police investigated him multiple times, but despite circumstantial evidence, there was never enough proof to arrest him. Why was he a suspect? He owned a Zodiac watch. Allen wore a wristwatch featuring the same cross-circle symbol used by the Zodiac Killer in his letters. He had a criminal history. Allen had a record of sexual offenses against children and was known to have violent tendencies. He made suspicious statements. He allegedly told friends he wanted to kill people and use a flashlight on his gun, just like the Zodiac did. He lived near the crime scenes. Allen lived in Vallejo, California, close to where several Zodiac murders took place. He had an interest in ciphers. The Zodiac was obsessed with cryptography, and Allen was known to be fascinated with codes and puzzles. Why wasn't he arrested? Despite all the red flags, police never had hard evidence linking Allen to the crimes. His handwriting did not match the Zodiac's letters. Fingerprint and DNA evidence did not match what little was recovered from Zodiac-related evidence. He denied any involvement and was never officially charged. Allen died in 1992 from a heart attack, taking any secrets with him. Gary Francis Post, the alleged Zodiac Killer, identified in 2021. In 2021, an independent team of investigators called the Case Breakers announced they had identified the Zodiac Killer as Gary Francis Post, a former Air Force veteran and house painter who died in 2018. Why was he a suspect? A connection to a 1966 murder. Post was linked to the murder of Sherry Jo Bates, an unsolved case in Riverside, California, believed to be an early Zodiac attack. Matching scars. Investigators pointed out scars on Post's forehead that closely resembled those described in the Zodiac sketch. Hidden messages in Zodiac ciphers. They claimed his full name was embedded in some of the Zodiac ciphers, but never provided full proof. Former associates' confessions. A group of men who knew Post later claimed he had trained them like a cult, teaching them how to kill. Why is his identity controversial? The FBI and official law enforcement agencies never confirmed Post as the Zodiac. No physical evidence, DNA, fingerprints, or handwriting directly tied him to the case. Some experts dismissed the Case Breakers' claims as weak and based on assumptions rather than facts. While Post remains a strong modern suspect, many true crime experts still doubt his connection to the Zodiac. Other notable Zodiac suspects. 1. Lawrence Kane. A former Navy man with a criminal past, Kane was suspected because he lived near the area of the Zodiac killings. A woman who survived a Zodiac attack, Kathleen Johns, later identified his photo as her abductor. He had training in cryptography, making him capable of creating the Zodiac ciphers. However, his DNA and handwriting didn't match, and no conclusive evidence was found. 2. Earl Van Best Jr. This suspect gained attention when his son, Gary Stewart, published a book claiming his father was a Zodiac. His claims were based on resemblance to the Zodiac sketch, possible handwriting similarities, alleged links to cryptography. However, his theory was widely criticized and lacked solid proof. 3. Richard Gaikowski, a newspaper editor with a resemblance to the Zodiac sketches, a history of strange behavior, a connection to underground movements. Despite being investigated, there was never enough evidence to confirm him as the killer. 4. Rick Marshall had knowledge of film and projection equipment, which the Zodiac referenced in letters. Lived near the crime scenes. Some claimed his handwriting matched the Zodiac's. However, the police found no conclusive proof linking him to the murders. Why hasn't the Zodiac been identified? Despite decades of investigation and multiple suspects, the Zodiac remains unidentified due to several key reasons. Lack of forensic evidence. No confirmed fingerprints, DNA, or solid physical evidence exists to link anyone to the crimes. The Zodiac was extremely careful. He was meticulous, leaving behind almost no evidence. He may have misled police with fake clues. Some letters and ciphers may have been intentional distractions. Some ciphers remain unsolved. If his real name was hidden in one, it may still be unknown. Underscore 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 underscore. Final verdict. Who was the Zodiac Killer? The truth is, we may never know for certain. Arthur Lee Allen remains the most investigated suspect, but no evidence officially links him to the crimes. Gary Francis Post was named in 2021, but law enforcement has never confirmed him as the killer. Other suspects have partial connections, but no definitive proof. Even with modern DNA technology and forensic advancements, the Zodiac Killer's true identity remains one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history. Did he die before he could be caught? Did he leave behind more clues waiting to be discovered? Or was he never one of the named suspects at all? The search for the real Zodiac continues. Could the Zodiac Killer have been more than one person? For decades, the Zodiac Killer has been considered a lone serial killer, an intelligent and taunting murderer who operated independently. However, some theories suggest that the Zodiac may have been more than one person, a duo, a group, or even a network of criminals working together. Could the Zodiac have been a team rather than a single individual? And if so, what evidence supports this theory? Theory 1. The multiple killers hypothesis. Some researchers and amateur sleuths believe that the Zodiac could not have acted alone. The reasoning behind this theory includes different MOs, methods of operation. Some victims were shot, others were stabbed. Some attacks were at night, while others occurred in broad daylight. This suggests that multiple people with different tendencies could have been involved. The changing writing style and letters. Some experts claim that the Zodiac's handwriting and phrasing varied significantly between letters. Could this indicate different authors writing under the same alias? Eyewitness descriptions vary. Witnesses who saw the suspected Zodiac described different heights, builds, and facial features. Could this mean that different people committed different attacks? The phone call discrepancy. After some attacks, the Zodiac called the police to confess. Some believe the voice sounded different in each call. These factors raise the possibility that Zodiac was not a single killer, but a group of individuals working together. Theory 2. The mastermind and accomplice theory. Another possibility is that the Zodiac was one mastermind with an accomplice. One person may have written the letters, while another committed the murders. The letters were highly cryptic, requiring a deep understanding of codes and ciphers. The murders were brutal and methodical, suggesting someone skilled in handling weapons. If the Zodiac was a partnership, one could have been the brains, designing the puzzles and writing the taunting letters, while the other was the enforcer, carrying out the actual killings. Some theorists speculate that Arthur Lee Allen, a known Zodiac suspect, may have worked with a partner who had knowledge of cryptography. Theory 3. The copycat theory. Could the Zodiac Killer's identity have changed over time? Some researchers argue that the first few murders may have been committed by the original Zodiac. Later crimes could have been carried out by a copycat killer who imitated the Zodiac style. The letters and ciphers may have been written by different individuals over time. One of the biggest points supporting this theory is that the Zodiac claimed to have killed 37 people, yet only 5 murders are officially confirmed. Was the real Zodiac responsible for all of them, or did others use his name to cover their own crimes? Theory 4. The cult or group theory. Some believe the Zodiac was not just one or two killers, but rather a group or a secret cult-like organization. The Manson family operated around the same time, proving that organized murder cults existed in the late 1960s. The Zodiac's letters reference cryptic philosophy and strange religious ideas about slaves in the afterlife. The symbol of the Zodiac, the cross circle, has been linked to occult and secret societies. While this theory is less popular, it raises the question, could the Zodiac have been more than one person working under a shared ideology? Counter-arguments. Why the Zodiac was likely a lone killer. Despite these theories, most experts still believe the Zodiac was a single person. Here's why. The letters were consistent. While some letters varied slightly, most experts believe they were written by the same person. Serial killers often work alone. The Zodiac's crimes fit the classic lone serial killer profile, a person who acts alone and thrives on control. The psychological profile suggests a single killer. FBI profilers have studied the Zodiac case extensively, concluding that he was an individual working alone with a deep need for recognition. No concrete evidence of multiple people. Despite decades of investigation, no solid proof has ever been found that suggests multiple killers were behind the Zodiac attacks. Conclusion: was the Zodiac a group or a lone wolf? The idea of multiple Zodiac killers remains an intriguing possibility, but there is no definitive proof to support it. The Zodiac may have acted alone, changing his tactics and handwriting over time to confuse police. He could have had a partner or accomplice, but if so, that person has never been identified. The possibility of a copycat killer remains open, but it does not explain the original murders. Unless new evidence emerges, the Zodiac Killer will likely remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history, whether he was one man or many. DNA evidence and the search for the truth. For decades, investigators have searched for the true identity of the Zodiac Killer. While suspects have come and gone, one thing has remained constant: the lack of definitive physical evidence. However, with advancements in DNA technology, many hope that the Zodiac's identity would finally be revealed. Could DNA finally unmask the most elusive serial killer in history? And if so, why has it taken so long? The Zodiac's lack of forensic evidence. One of the biggest reasons why the Zodiac Killer was never caught is that he left almost no forensic evidence behind. No confirmed fingerprints. While partial prints were found at crime scenes, none were strong enough for a match. No murder weapon recovered. The Zodiac used different firearms and knives, making it harder to trace him. No witnesses with a clear view. While some people saw the Zodiac, their descriptions varied. No DNA samples, at least not until recently. Unlike modern serial killers who are caught through DNA databases and forensic analysis, the Zodiac operated in a time where these tools were limited or non-existent. However, in the early 2000s, investigators turned to DNA technology, hoping to finally put a name to the infamous killer. The Zodiac Killer's DNA. What do we have? In their search for DNA, investigators focused on three key pieces of evidence. 1. The Zodiac letters. The Zodiac licked envelopes and stamps on the letters he sent to newspapers. If his saliva remained intact, it could contain his DNA. In 2002, forensic experts attempted to extract DNA from these stamps. The results were inconclusive. Either the DNA was too degraded, or someone else licked the stamps for him. 2. Paul Stine's murder scene. Paul Stine, a San Francisco taxi driver, was shot by the Zodiac on October 11, 1969. The killer wiped down the car but may have left behind a partial fingerprint. A bloody fingerprint was found on the taxi's door. However, this print has never been definitively linked to any known suspect. 3. The Zodiac's personal items, if any exist. If the Zodiac had relatives still alive, a familial DNA match could lead to his identity. Investigators attempted to compare DNA from Zodiac letters to known suspects, but no matches have been confirmed. The breakthrough of genetic genealogy. In 2018, the Golden State Killer was identified using genetic genealogy, a method that traces DNA through family trees and public ancestry databases. This method revolutionized forensic science, leading many to believe that the Zodiac could finally be identified the same way. If a close relative of the Zodiac had submitted DNA to a public ancestry database, law enforcement could link the killer to a family name. GEDmatch and other genealogy databases were used to compare crime scene DNA to distant relatives. The Casebreakers, a private investigative group, claimed in 2021 that they used genealogical methods to identify the Zodiac as Gary Francis Post. But this was never confirmed by official law enforcement. Have we identified the Zodiac Killer? As of today, no official DNA match has been made to the Zodiac Killer. In 2018, police re-examined evidence for new DNA testing. In 2021, the Casebreakers named Gary Francis Post as the Zodiac using genetic genealogy, but their claims remain unverified by the FBI. The San Francisco Police Department has never confirmed a DNA match. There is still hope that new forensic breakthroughs could lead to a definitive match. What's next? The future of the Zodiac DNA investigation. Despite the challenges, there are several ways the Zodiac's identity could still be uncovered. 1. Re-examining Zodiac letters. New forensic techniques may recover usable DNA from the envelopes and stamps. 2. Testing more evidence. If any new Zodiac-related items, like clothing, weapons, or personal effects, are discovered, they could provide fresh DNA samples. 3. Genetic genealogy. As more people submit their DNA to ancestry databases, a familial match to the Zodiac might eventually emerge. 4. New AI and forensic analysis. Advanced artificial intelligence tools could help reanalyze Zodiac's letters, ciphers, and crime scene details in ways never possible before. Could DNA finally solve the case? The Zodiac Killer was one of the most elusive criminals in history, but forensic science is more advanced than ever before. If the Zodiac's DNA exists somewhere, it is only a matter of time before it is found and identified. Until then, the mystery remains and the world still asks, who was the Zodiac Killer? And will we ever know the truth? How the Zodiac Killer changed crime investigations forever. The Zodiac Killer was more than just a murderer. He was a criminal mastermind who played a psychological game with police, the media, and the public. His taunting letters, cryptic ciphers, and ability to evade capture made him one of the most infamous and frustrating criminals in history. But beyond the horror of his crimes, the Zodiac forever changed how criminal investigations were conducted. His case pushed law enforcement to develop new forensic techniques, improve communication between agencies, and rethink how they profile and catch serial killers. Here's how the Zodiac Killer transformed modern crime investigations. 1. Serial killer profiling became more sophisticated. Before the Zodiac, law enforcement did not have a well-established system for identifying and tracking serial killers. The term serial killer wasn't even widely used in the late 1960s. Investigators saw murders as isolated incidents rather than connected patterns of behavior. Profiling techniques were limited, making it difficult to understand the killer's motivations and personality. The Zodiac case changed that by forcing law enforcement to develop psychological profiles of serial killers. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, BSU, later used the Zodiac case to study criminal psychology, leading to the development of modern criminal profiling. The case helped law enforcement recognize patterns in serial killings, leading to better tracking of future offenders like Ted Bundy, the BTK Killer, and the Golden State Killer. The Zodiac's intelligence, manipulation, and need for attention set the standard for how modern serial killers are profiled today. 2. Criminals began using the media as a weapon. The Zodiac was one of the first serial killers to manipulate the media. He sent taunting letters to newspapers, demanding that they be published on the front page, or he would continue killing. His ciphers created fear and panic, making his crimes feel like an unsolvable mystery. He thrived on media attention, turning his killings into a public spectacle. Because of the Zodiac, law enforcement had to rethink how to handle criminals who seek media attention. The case influenced later police procedures, such as not giving serial killers the publicity they crave, e.g., Jack the Ripper, BK. Investigators started working more closely with journalists to prevent copycat crimes. The Zodiac inspired future killers, like the son of Sam and the BTK Killer, who also taunted police through letters. Today, law enforcement controls how much information is released to the media to avoid giving killers the attention they seek. 3. The case pushed advancements in forensic science. At the time of the Zodiac killings, forensic technology was limited. DNA profiling did not exist. Investigators had to rely on fingerprints, eyewitness testimony, and handwriting analysis. The Zodiac never left clear fingerprints and may have altered his handwriting, making traditional forensic techniques useless. His letters and ciphers forced law enforcement to develop new forensic linguistics techniques to analyze his writing style. As a result, the case highlighted the weaknesses in forensic investigations and led to the expansion of forensic databases, AFIS for fingerprints, CODIS for DNA, better preservation of evidence, ensuring that DNA could be tested decades later. The rise of genetic genealogy, which helped solve the Golden State Killer case in 2018. If the Zodiac had committed his crimes today, DNA technology might have caught him within months. 4. Police departments improved their communication. One major reason the Zodiac was never caught was poor communication between different police departments. The murders took place across multiple counties, and each law enforcement agency worked separately. There was no centralized system for sharing case details. The FBI was not fully involved early in the case, delaying potential breakthroughs. Because of the Zodiac case, police began sharing information across jurisdictions, leading to the creation of national databases for serial killers, improved cooperation between local and federal law enforcement, the development of the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICE-AP, which helps track and link serial offenders across the country. Had these systems existed in the 1960s, Zodiac may have been caught much sooner. 5. The power of cryptography in criminal investigations. The Zodiac's use of ciphers was unprecedented in criminal history. His first cipher, the 408-character code, was cracked in a week, but others, like the 340 cipher, took 51 years to decode. He used multiple encryption techniques, making some messages nearly impossible to solve. Even the FBI struggled to break his codes. Because of the Zodiac, cryptography became an important tool in criminal investigations. The case inspired modern forensic cryptographers to study how criminals use encryption. New methods were developed to decode hidden messages in ransom notes, terrorist communications, and cybercrimes. The Zodiac ciphers are still studied by experts today, showing how criminals can use secret messages to evade capture. The fact that 2 of the Zodiac's ciphers remain unsolved proves how ahead of his time he was. 6. The birth of the true crime obsession. The Zodiac Killer became one of the first cases to spark public obsession with true crime. His ciphers, taunts, and mysterious identity made the case feel like a real-life detective story. Amateur sleuths, journalists, and authors became obsessed with solving the mystery. The case led to a surge in true crime books, documentaries, and TV shows. Today, the Zodiac case is still one of the most studied crimes in history, inspiring. Movies like Zodiac, 2007. TV series like Mindhunter. Online forums dedicated to solving the case. The Zodiac proved that a killer doesn't need to be caught to be infamous. He just needs to create a mystery that lasts forever. Conclusion: a criminal who changed everything. The Zodiac Killer may never have been caught, but his impact on law enforcement, forensic science, and criminal psychology changed investigations forever. His case led to more advanced serial killer profiling, better cooperation between police departments, improvements in forensic science and DNA testing, the rise of cryptography in criminal cases, a global obsession with true crime. Even today, his ciphers remain unsolved, his identity unknown, and his legend alive. The Zodiac may be gone, but his mystery still haunts the world. Online sleuths and Zodiac conspiracies. Who is still searching? The Zodiac Killer case may be decades old, but the search for his true identity has never stopped. Even though law enforcement agencies like the FBI and local police continue to investigate, much of the modern hunt for the Zodiac has been taken over by online sleuths, independent researchers, and true crime enthusiasts. From armchair detectives on Reddit to cryptography experts working on the unsolved ciphers, a global community remains dedicated to uncovering the truth about the Zodiac. The rise of the Zodiac community. The internet revolutionized crime solving. The rise of online forums, social media, and public crime databases has allowed thousands of people to collaborate in ways that were impossible in the 1960s. Several major online communities are actively working to solve the case. Reddit's r/Zodiac Killer, one of the largest online groups where amateur sleuths analyze clues, discuss theories, and investigate potential suspects. ZodiacKiller.com, a website run by Tom Voigt, one of the most dedicated Zodiac researchers, containing an extensive archive of police reports, letters, and suspect profiles. websleuths.com, a crime discussion forum where true crime enthusiasts compare notes on the case. YouTube channels and podcasts. Many content creators, like Mike Morford's Zodiac Speaking podcast, break down theories and discuss new evidence. Even after more than 50 years, the Zodiac case remains one of the most actively investigated cold cases by the public. Who are the most active Zodiac investigators today? Several key individuals continue to lead the modern search for the Zodiac Killer. 1. Tom Voigt, ZodiacKiller.com. One of the most well-known Zodiac researchers, has spent decades compiling case files, police reports, and suspect information. Believes there is more to the story than law enforcement has revealed. 2. David Orenchak, codebreaker of the 340 cipher, a computer programmer and cryptographer who cracked the 340-character Zodiac cipher in 2020. Continues working on the remaining unsolved Zodiac ciphers to see if the killer left more hidden messages. 3. The Casebreakers 2021 investigation. A team of independent investigators who claimed in 2021 that Gary Francis' post was a Zodiac. Their claims remain controversial, and law enforcement has not confirmed their findings. 4. Mike Morford, true crime podcaster and researcher, runs Zodiac Speaking, a podcast focused entirely on the case. Has interviewed law enforcement officers and witnesses from the original investigation. These individuals, along with countless anonymous online researchers, continue to work towards solving the Zodiac mystery. What conspiracy theories still exist? The Zodiac case has sparked some of the most bizarre and controversial conspiracy theories in true crime history. Here are some of the most famous ones. 1. The Zodiac was a government agent. Some believe the Zodiac had military or intelligence training, explaining why he was never caught. His cryptic messages and ability to evade police have led some to theorize that he was part of a CIA or FBI Black Ops program. 2. The Zodiac was a cult, not one person. Some think the Zodiac was more than one person, possibly a secret group or cult. The cross-circle symbol could have been a hidden message tied to an underground organization. The Manson family operated at the same time, fueling speculation that Zodiac could have been connected to a larger criminal network. 3. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was the Zodiac. Some believe that Ted Kaczynski, the infamous Unabomber, could have been the Zodiac. He had a history of writing cryptic letters and lived near Zodiac crime scenes. However, there is no direct evidence linking him to the case. 4. The Zodiac worked in law enforcement. The killer seemed to always be one step ahead of police. Some think he may have been a police officer, investigator, or someone with insider knowledge. No officer has ever been formally accused, but the theory remains popular. 5. The ciphers still contain a hidden name. While the 340 cipher was solved in 2020, 2 other Zodiac ciphers remain unsolved. O the Z13 cipher, my name is. O the Z32 cipher, mapped to a bomb location. Some believe that one of these codes still contains the Zodiac's real name. Until those ciphers are cracked, some will always believe that the final clue is still out there. How close are we to finding the Zodiac? Despite the years of research, the Zodiac case remains unsolved, but that doesn't mean it will stay that way forever. Here's what might finally solve the case. DNA breakthroughs. If forensic scientists can extract better DNA samples from the Zodiac letters or crime scenes, it could lead to a genetic match. Solving the last 2 ciphers. If the Z13 or Z32 ciphers are cracked, they might reveal hidden information about the killer. New witnesses coming forward. As people age, some might finally share secrets they've kept for decades. Advancements in AI and data analysis. AI programs might be able to analyze Zodiac letters, ciphers, and suspect profiles in ways that were never possible before. If any of these breakthroughs happen, the Zodiac's true identity may finally be revealed. Will the Zodiac ever be caught? The Zodiac may have died decades ago, but his mystery remains alive. As long as there are unsolved clues, the search for the Zodiac will continue. Whether it's a breakthrough in DNA testing, a new suspect, or an amateur codebreaker solving the final cipher, there is still hope that one day the world will know the truth. Until then, the case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. Is the Zodiac Killer still alive? The Zodiac Killer's identity has remained a mystery for over 50 years, leaving many to wonder. Is he still alive? Or did he take his secrets to the grave? Given the timeline of the murders, 1968 to 1974, if the Zodiac was between 25 and 40 years old at the time, he would be between 80 and 100 years old today. If he is still alive, could the Zodiac still be out there, watching as the world continues to search for him? Or is his identity forever lost? What do the theories say? There are three major possibilities regarding whether the Zodiac is still alive. 1. The Zodiac died years ago. Most likely theory. Most investigators believe the Zodiac is already dead. Many prime suspects have already died, including Arthur Lee Allen, died in 1992, one of the most famous suspects. Gary Francis Post died in 2018, claimed to be the Zodiac by independent investigators. Lawrence Kane died in 2010. Eyewitnesses identified him, but no proof was found. The Zodiac's letters stopped in 1974. Serial killers often continue their crimes for years, but after his final letters, he vanished. If alive today, he would likely be too old to continue. A man in his 80s or 90s would likely not be capable of evading the FBI, police, and amateur sleuths for decades. 2. The Zodiac was arrested for another crime. Another theory is that the Zodiac was caught and imprisoned for a different crime, possibly under another name. Why this could be true? Other serial killers, like the Golden State Killer, went unnoticed for decades. The Zodiac might have changed his methods after realizing police were closing in. He might have been convicted of an unrelated crime and spent the rest of his life in prison. However, no convicted criminals have ever been officially linked to the Zodiac murders. 3. The Zodiac is still alive today, unlikely but possible. A small group of theorists believe the Zodiac is still alive, possibly living under a new identity. What supports this theory? The Zodiac was highly intelligent and careful. He never left clear DNA or fingerprints, meaning he might have known how to avoid capture. There are still active Zodiac sleuths searching for him. If they are looking, there must be a reason to believe he could be alive. Some of the Zodiac ciphers remain unsolved. Could he still be playing his game, waiting for the final mystery to be uncovered? However, there is no concrete evidence proving that the Zodiac is alive today. Could DNA still solve the case? Even if the Zodiac is dead, his identity might still be revealed through DNA. Modern forensic advancements have already solved other cold cases, like the Golden State Killer in 2018. If investigators find usable DNA from Zodiac crime scenes or letters, they might be able to 1. Compare it to existing criminal databases. 2. Use genetic genealogy to find family members. 3. Finally unmask the Zodiac Killer. If the Zodiac is still alive, DNA testing could lead police straight to him. The final verdict: is the Zodiac Killer still alive? Most likely, the Zodiac Killer is dead. He would be in his late 80s or 90s, making survival unlikely. His letters stopped in 1974, suggesting he either died, was arrested, or went into hiding. No new murders have matched his pattern in decades. Could he still be alive? If he was a younger man in the 1960s, early 20s, he might still be alive today in his 70s or 80s. However, he would need to have completely erased his past, avoiding detection for over 50 years. Will we ever know for sure? If DNA technology advances further, the Zodiac's identity may finally be revealed, even if he is already dead. Until that happens, the mystery remains unsolved. The question of whether the Zodiac Killer is still alive may never be answered, but the search for his true identity continues. The final letter. Did the Zodiac leave one last clue? The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror left behind countless mysteries, his identity, his motivations, and most importantly, his final message to the world. His letters were his way of taunting the police and the public, playing a game of riddles and murder that has yet to be fully solved. But after years of cryptic messages and ciphers, the Zodiac's letters suddenly stopped in 1974. Did the Zodiac leave one final clue in his last letter? Was he telling us something hidden in plain sight? The last confirmed Zodiac letter. January 29, 1974, The Exorcist Letter. The last confirmed letter from the Zodiac was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle on January 29, 1974. Unlike his earlier letters, this one was short and strange, referencing the horror film The Exorcist, which had just been released. The letter read, "I saw and think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen. Signed, yours truly." He plunged himself into the billowy wave, and an echo arose from the suicide's grave. To Twillo, to Twillo, to Twillo. At the bottom of the letter, the Zodiac included his usual cross-circle symbol, but did not include a cipher. This letter raised more questions than answers. Why did the Zodiac reference a horror movie? Was he mocking society's fears, or was this a sign that he was losing interest in his game? What does the poetic line mean? The phrase, "he plunged himself into the billowy wave," comes from the play The Mikado, which he had referenced before. Was this a hidden farewell message? Did he actually write this letter? Some experts doubt its authenticity, believing it was either a hoax or that the Zodiac was trying to confuse investigators. Did the Zodiac disappear after this letter? After the January 1974 Exorcist letter, the Zodiac never sent another confirmed message. Several theories exist about why he stopped. He died. The Zodiac might have passed away, either naturally or under mysterious circumstances. He was arrested for another crime. Some believe the Zodiac ended up in prison for an unrelated crime, preventing him from continuing his game. He lost interest. If the Zodiac thrived on attention, he might have stopped once the media moved on to other killers, like Ted Bundy or the Son of Sam. He wanted to see if he'd be remembered. The Zodiac loved playing games. Maybe he simply wanted to see if people would still search for him decades later. Were there unconfirmed Zodiac letters after 1974? After the final confirmed letter, several suspected Zodiac letters were sent between 1978 and 1990, but none were proven authentic. Some of these included the 1978 letter, contained Zodiac-style writing, but was dismissed as a forgery. The 1986 New York letter, a letter signed with the Zodiac symbol, but its handwriting didn't match. The 1990 Eureka letter, found in Eureka, California. Some believe this could have been a real final letter, but its authenticity is debated. If the Zodiac wrote any of these later letters, it means he was still alive and watching for decades after his crimes. Did the Zodiac leave one final clue? Some conspiracy theorists believe that the final Zodiac letter contained a hidden farewell message. The clue in the Mikado quote, the phrase, "he plunged himself into the billowy wave," comes from the Mikado, a play about death and execution. Was the Zodiac signing off, saying his time was coming to an end? No more ciphers. Unlike previous letters, the final confirmed Zodiac letter did not contain a cipher. Was this because he had already given his final puzzle, and it was just waiting to be solved? Was he telling us he was done? If the Zodiac's ego was as big as many believe, he wouldn't simply disappear. He would leave a final challenge. Some believe the last clue is hidden in one of his unsolved ciphers. Could there be a final Zodiac letter we haven't found? Some experts believe that the Zodiac may have written a last letter that was never made public. Possibilities include a private letter to a newspaper or police that was never released, a personal confession sent to someone he knew, a hidden message in one of his previous letters that no one has found yet. If a final Zodiac letter exists, it could still be out there, waiting to be discovered. Underscore 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 underscore. The final verdict. Was there a last Zodiac clue? Red Circle the Zodiac's final letter remains a mystery. The January 1974 Exorcist letter was the last confirmed communication. It contained no ciphers, but may have included a hidden farewell message. There are unconfirmed Zodiac letters from 1978 to 1990, but none have been verified. Some believe the final clue is hidden in his unsolved ciphers. If the Zodiac truly left one last clue, it has either been overlooked or is still waiting to be found. Until then, the Zodiac's final message remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Could new technology finally unmask the Zodiac Killer? For over 50 years, the Zodiac Killer has remained one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Despite numerous suspects, thousands of hours of investigation, and countless theories, his identity has never been confirmed. However, with modern advancements in forensic science, artificial intelligence, and genetic genealogy, could new technology finally unmask the Zodiac? 1. DNA technology. The biggest hope for solving the case. One of the biggest breakthroughs in criminal investigations has been the use of DNA evidence, something that wasn't available when the Zodiac was active. How could DNA solve the Zodiac case? Genetic genealogy. This method was used to catch the Golden State Killer in 2018, linking crime scene DNA to distant relatives through genealogy websites like GeneMatch and Ancestry DNA. If even a distant relative of the Zodiac submitted DNA, police could trace the family tree back to him. Re-examining Zodiac letters. The Zodiac licked envelopes and stamps on his letters. New forensic techniques could recover saliva DNA that wasn't detectable before. Testing other evidence. If blood, hair, or other biological samples exist from Zodiac crime scenes, advanced forensic tools could finally produce a match. Why hasn't DNA cracked the case yet? Old evidence may be contaminated. Many crime scene samples from the 1960s and 1970s may be degraded or too damaged for modern DNA analysis. Zodiac may have avoided leaving DNA. Some believe the Zodiac had police or military knowledge, knowing how to avoid leaving traces. He may have had someone else lick the envelopes for him or wore gloves during his crimes. Despite these challenges, DNA remains the most promising tool for identifying the Zodiac. If a viable sample is found, the case could be solved instantly. 2. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. Advancements in AI and machine learning could provide new insights into the Zodiac's identity. How AI can help catch the Zodiac. Handwriting analysis. AI can now compare millions of handwriting samples in seconds. If a suspect's old letters, signatures, or documents exist, AI could match them to Zodiac's letters with greater accuracy than traditional forensics. Speech and linguistic profiling. AI can analyze the Zodiac's writing patterns, grammar, and unique phrases, potentially identifying him by comparing them to known documents from suspects. Cipher decryption. AI and quantum computing are being used to crack complex ciphers. If Zodiac hid his real name or other clues in the unsolved Z13 and Z32 ciphers, AI might finally decode them. Example: the 340-character cipher, which went unsolved for 51 years, was finally cracked in 2020 using machine learning algorithms and advanced cryptographic techniques. Could AI solve the remaining ciphers? 3. Facial recognition and digital reconstruction. Even though no clear photos of the Zodiac exist, new facial recognition and AI-driven age progression technology could help. AI-enhanced Zodiac sketch. Modern software can enhance and refine the 1969 police sketch based on new forensic methods. Aging technology. If the Zodiac is still alive, AI can generate age-progressed images to see what he might look like today. Scanning old police files and mugshots. AI can sift through thousands of old criminal records, photos, and documents, finding matches that might have been overlooked. Could Zodiac's real face already exist in old records, just waiting to be identified? 4. Big data and cold case databases. Technology has made it easier than ever to connect the dots between different cases. The FBI's ViceAP database, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, ViceAP, uses big data to link unsolved cases across the country. If Zodiac committed other crimes under different names, see if he might find the connections. Crowdsourced investigations. Online communities like Reddit's r/Zodiac Killer and ZodiacKiller.com are now using data-driven investigations, analyzing old case files in ways that were never possible before. AI-powered pattern recognition. AI can scan thousands of police reports, looking for patterns that human investigators may have missed decades ago. Could Zodiac have committed more crimes than we know? Could AI find his hidden trail? 5. The final ciphers. Could technology solve them? 2 Zodiac ciphers remain unsolved. The Z13 cipher, my name is, a 13-character cipher that could contain his name. The Z32 cipher, mapped to a bomb. A 32-character cipher that allegedly reveals a bomb location. If modern AI, quantum computing, or new cryptographic techniques can finally solve these ciphers, they may provide the final clue to his identity. Could we finally unmask the Zodiac? The answer is yes, if the right evidence still exists. If viable DNA is recovered, genetic genealogy could identify him. AI handwriting analysis could match Zodiac's letters to a real person. Facial recognition could scan old records to find a match. Big data and digital archives could uncover missed clues. Quantum computing and AI could crack the final Zodiac ciphers. Even though he evaded capture for decades, technology has advanced beyond anything the Zodiac could have imagined. If the right breakthrough happens, we could finally unmask one of history's most notorious killers. The question is, will it happen in our lifetime? What if we never solve the mystery of the Zodiac Killer? For over 50 years, law enforcement, forensic experts, and amateur sleuths have tried to uncover the true identity of the Zodiac Killer. Yet, despite numerous suspects, countless investigations, and modern technology, the case remains unsolved. But what if the mystery is never solved? What would it mean for true crime investigations, law enforcement, and the legacy of the Zodiac himself? 1. The Zodiac would become the ultimate unsolved case. If the Zodiac is never identified, his case would remain one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history, a case that haunts law enforcement. Just like Jack the Ripper, the Zodiac would forever be a name without a face, a symbol of the perfect crime. His ability to taunt police, evade capture, and disappear would make him one of the most infamous criminals of all time. True crime's greatest puzzle. The Zodiac would continue to fascinate people for generations, inspiring books, movies, documentaries, and conspiracy theories. The lack of closure would only add to his legend, making him a ghost that haunts history. 2. Could the Zodiac already be dead? One reason the Zodiac may never be caught is he may already be dead. If he was between 25 to 40 years old in 1969, he would be 80 to 100 today. Most prime suspects, like Arthur Lee Allen and Gary Francis Post, are already dead. If he died in the 1970s or 80s, we may never find his DNA. If the Zodiac took his secrets to the grave, the mystery may be unsolvable. However, even if he is dead, technology could still expose him. If law enforcement finds a DNA match through genetic genealogy, his identity could still be revealed posthumously. If a secret confession, diary, or deathbed letter exists, it could surface one day. But if nothing ever appears, the Zodiac will forever remain a mystery. 3. The unsolved ciphers. Do they hold the key? The Zodiac's biggest mystery isn't just his identity, but his unsolved ciphers. The Z13 cipher, my name is. If it contains his real name, cracking it could solve the case. The Z32 cipher, mapped to a bomb. If this reveals a location, could there be more evidence waiting to be discovered? New AI and cryptographic technology could still solve them. But what if they were never meant to be solved? Zodiac may have included fake letters to waste time. The ciphers could be meaningless or incomplete. If a critical key is missing, they may never be decoded. If the final clues remain unsolved, the Zodiac's identity may stay hidden forever. For what would it mean for law enforcement? The Zodiac case exposed flaws in police investigations. Poor communication between jurisdictions allowed him to escape detection. Lack of forensic science in the 1960s made gathering evidence difficult. His media manipulation forced police to handle crime and public fear in new ways. If he is never caught, the case will serve as a lesson in how criminals can exploit gaps in police work. However, it also pushed law enforcement to improve, leading to national crime databases, Vice-Epicodes, AFIS, better forensic technology, DNA profiling, genetic genealogy, stronger media strategies for handling serial killers. Even if we never solve the case, the Zodiac changed how serial killers are investigated forever. 5. The legacy of the Zodiac. Myth versus reality. If the Zodiac is never caught, will his real story be lost to legend? Like Jack the Ripper, myths will replace facts. If no real answers emerge, the Zodiac will become more of a legend than a historical truth. Endless books, movies, and theories. The mystery will never die, and new suspects will keep being named. The case that never ends. Amateur sleuths will keep searching, ensuring the Zodiac lives on through speculation. His real identity might not matter as much as the story people create around him. 6. Could the truth be hidden somewhere? Even if no one finds the Zodiac's identity today, could there be an answer somewhere waiting to be discovered? A forgotten police file with DNA evidence? A hidden confession or secret journal? An undiscovered Zodiac letter never sent to the media? If such an artifact exists, one discovery could change everything. But if nothing ever appears, the Zodiac will remain a mystery forever. 7. The psychological impact. Can we accept an unsolvable case? Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. The Zodiac case has consumed decades of work, thousands of hours, and countless theories. But if no real proof is ever found, at some point, society may have to let the mystery go. Does that mean we should stop searching? No, because as long as the Zodiac remains unidentified, he wins. Even if we never get a name, the continued search honors the victims and ensures the Zodiac's crimes are never forgotten. Final verdict. Can we live with the mystery? If the Zodiac case is never solved, he becomes one of history's greatest unsolved crimes. His ciphers may remain unreadable, his name forever unknown. His real face may never be seen, his secrets buried forever. But his mystery has shaped history, changed investigations, and fascinated generations. And one clue, one discovery, could still change everything. Until that day, the Zodiac remains what he always wanted to be, a puzzle that no one can solve. The Zodiac Killer, America's greatest unsolved mystery. The Zodiac Killer is one of the most infamous and puzzling serial killers in American history. His brutal crimes, cryptic letters, and taunting messages turn his case into a terrifying game of cat and mouse, one that remains unsolved over 50 years later. Despite eyewitness descriptions, letters, ciphers, and numerous suspects, the Zodiac's true identity has never been confirmed. How did he evade capture? Why did he stop killing? And will we ever uncover the truth? This is the story of America's greatest unsolved mystery. 1. The crimes that shocked the nation. The Zodiac's reign of terror began in Northern California in 1968, targeting random victims and sending letters filled with cryptic ciphers to the media. His confirmed murders include Red Circle Lake Herman Road, December 20th, 1968. Victims: Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17. Method: shot execution style, while parked on a secluded road. What made it unusual? No robbery, no known motive, just cold-blooded murder. Red Circle, Blue Rock Springs, July 4th, 1969. Victims: Darlene Farron, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19. Method: shot multiple times while sitting in a parked car. Survivor: Michael Mageau survived and gave the first physical description of the Zodiac. Zodiac's call: less than an hour later, he called the police and confessed. Red Circle Lake, Berryessa, September 27, 1969. Victims: Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepard, 22. Method: stabbed repeatedly after being tied up by a masked man wearing a cross-circle emblem on his chest. What made it different? First daylight attack, and the Zodiac appeared in disguise. Red Circle, San Francisco, October 11, 1969. Victim: Paul Stein, 29, a taxi driver. Method: shot in the head at point-blank range in the middle of a city. What made it unique? Unlike previous cases, this wasn't a couple but a lone male victim. The mistake that let him escape: police officers saw the Zodiac walking away, but let him go due to a dispatcher mistake describing the suspect as black instead of white. These crimes were only the ones confirmed. The Zodiac claimed he had 37 victims, but the true number remains unknown. 2. The letters and ciphers, a deadly puzzle. The Zodiac didn't just kill. He played games with the police and media. He sent dozens of letters to newspapers, mocking law enforcement and daring them to crack his cryptic ciphers. The 408-character cipher 1969. Decoded in a week, it revealed, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The 340-character cipher 1969. Unsolved for 51 years, cracked in 2020, revealing, "I hope you are having fun trying to catch me." The Z13 cipher 1970. Begins with "My name is" but remains unsolved. The Z32 cipher 1970. Allegedly revealed the location of a bomb but remains unsolved. Did the Zodiac hide his real name in these ciphers? Or were they designed to be unsolvable? Just another way to toy with investigators? 3. Why was the Zodiac never caught? Despite multiple eyewitnesses, letters, and police sketches, the Zodiac was never arrested. He left almost no evidence. No confirmed fingerprints, no DNA, no murder weapon. He changed his killing style. Gun, knife, night, day. He never had a predictable pattern. Law enforcement missteps. Police let him walk away after the Paul Stein murder due to a dispatcher mistake. He may have stopped killing. After 1974, his letters stopped. Did he die? Was he arrested for another crime? Or did he simply enjoy watching his legend grow? 4. The prime suspects. Was one of them the Zodiac? Arthur Lee Allen, the most investigated suspect, had disturbing behavior and lived near the crimes. Weakness. DNA and handwriting did not match Zodiac evidence. Gary Francis Post, named in 2021. A group of investigators claimed he was a Zodiac, citing scars on his forehead and alleged hidden messages in Zodiac ciphers. Weakness. Law enforcement has never officially confirmed him as the killer. Other theories. A police officer or military man. Zodiac seemed to know police investigation techniques. A group of killers? Some believe Zodiac was more than one person. Despite decades of investigation, none of these suspects were ever officially charged. 5. Could new technology finally solve the case? DNA technology and genetic genealogy. Just like the Golden State Killer was caught in 2018, forensic genealogy could match DNA from Zodiac's letters to his relatives. But no confirmed Zodiac DNA exists yet. AI and machine learning. AI could analyze Zodiac's handwriting, speech patterns, and cipher techniques to identify him. Quantum computing may one day solve his unsolved ciphers. Big data and cold case databases. FBI's ViceAP system links unsolved crimes. Could the Zodiac have other crimes we don't know about? If the Zodiac left behind even a small trace of DNA, modern technology could finally unmask him. 6. The final question. What if we never solve the mystery? What happens if the Zodiac's identity is never uncovered? He becomes a legend, just like Jack the Ripper. His name may already be lost to time, with no evidence left to find. His ciphers may remain unsolved forever. But the search for him has transformed crime investigations forever. Better forensic technology, DNA profiling, genetic genealogy, improved law enforcement communication, the rise of forensic cryptography. Even if we never find the Zodiac, his mystery changed the world. The Zodiac Killer, a case that still haunts America. The Zodiac may be gone, but his legend lives on. A killer who taunted the world. A puzzle that has never been fully solved. A mystery that may never be answered. Will we ever know the truth? Or will the Zodiac remain America's greatest unsolved mystery forever? The last message to viewers. Can you crack the final clue? The Zodiac Killer challenged the world, leaving behind puzzles, riddles, and mysteries that still remain unsolved. Were his final messages just taunts? Or did he leave behind one last clue, waiting for someone like you to crack it? For over 50 years, police, cryptographers, and online sleuths have searched for the truth. But maybe, just maybe, the key to unlocking the Zodiac's identity is still hidden in plain sight. Could the answer be in his unsolved ciphers? Was his real name right in front of us all along? Or was this his greatest trick? To remain a mystery forever? If you love unraveling mysteries, if you enjoy solving the unsolvable, then join us on this journey. Subscribe and stay tuned for more true crime mysteries. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video to support more true crime content. Subscribe to the channel for more unsolved cases and mysterious stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Do you think the Zodiac's final clue is still out there? Drop your theories in the comments. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and keep searching for the truth. The mystery is not over. It's just waiting to be solved.